Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be chatting all things prac students, all things mentor teachers. I'm going to be sharing my experiences being a mentor teacher with you and hopefully some really good advice for both mentor teachers and prac students. So keep watching because I think this is going to be a video that it will be really worthwhile for you and I hope you really enjoy. It is also absolutely freezing outside. I don't know where you are or where particularly you live, but today in Southeast Queensland it is very, very cold. So I have my bright pink cardigan on. I have a very cozy blanket that I'm snuggled up with, and I've also made myself a cup of tea because when you're just having a chat with friends, sometimes you like to have a cup of tea. So I thought I would grab a cup of tea, sit down, and we'll just chat about what it's like to be a prac student, what it's like to be a mentor teacher, and hopefully chill out together. So why don't you pause the video, go make yourself a cup of tea, maybe get yourself a cozy rug, and let's chat. Okay, so friends, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to talk about mentor teachers. I have now been a mentor teacher 3 times. I have had the privilege of hopefully helping 3 different prac students, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of what that was like, what I have learned, and what makes a really good mentor teacher, or what I found really helped me to hopefully be a really good mentor teacher. So there's a few things that you can do before your prac student even arrives through your door. And a couple of things is generally they should get in contact with you before they arrive to set up like a meeting, or the university should send you some information as to what the requirements that they need to fulfill. So the first thing as a mentor teacher is you look at all of those documents, and the best thing I did was I set a timetable for my prac student before I'd even met them. So I kind of looked at my timetable and went, okay, so the first week I really just want them to settle in. My goal for them is to get them to meet the kids, to understand our classroom culture, understand the school culture, and just really settle in, because that first week can be quite daunting. So that was week number 1. And then week number 2, 3, and 4, I started to give them more responsibilities. So once I knew that the kids actually knew them and trusted them, they started to do things like their mini lessons or their full lessons or their full day lessons. And as I saw them mature over the time of their prac, I gave them extra things, you know. How about you take this whole morning session since you're taking the actual lesson? Why don't you do all the transitions as well? So, because that's all part of being a teacher that I don't think you necessarily get a lot of practice in when you're on prac. So that was one thing I did. I set a timetable for them first, made sure all of their requirements were being filled so that I knew that I was doing my job and I knew that they could do their job to the fullest. A couple of other things that I did before they started was I was really clear on the expectations and what I wanted the student to do. Things like make sure they were taking notes so that we could discuss at the end of the day. Things like making sure they're writing all of their observations when I wanted their lesson plans, making sure they were up to date with their uni work as well as keeping up to date with prac, and making sure that I kept those clear lines of communication open. So if they were stressed or if they were really busy, I knew what that was going on in their world, because I know prac can be a really tricky time for some people. Generally you're out of work, or you're not working for those 4 weeks, or sometimes you're working and doing full-time prac, and it's a lot. There's a lot going on in your world. So making sure we're having those clear lines of communication. Here are my expectations before you even start, and then we can kind of hash those out and talk about them. Also, some other things that I did was I made sure to give them all of my unit plans. Obviously, I took out all of the sensitive information that I can't give just to anyone. However, gave them all of my unit plans before that so that they could kind of have an overview to kind of look into what they were coming into, because sometimes prac students are coming in like halfway through the term. So we've already taught a couple of weeks of content and they're coming in and then they're just kind of going off blind. And also the different types of students, not the full list of, you know, confidential things, because you can't really give those out, or you can't give those out, and it wouldn't be appropriate to give those out, but just a general rundown of who's in the class, what kind of needs they have, do they need help on anything, to give them a bit of an overview of what kind of differentiation you do in the classroom. So I found those things were really helpful to do before the prac student even comes into the room. When the prac student is in the room, the biggest thing you need to do as a mentor teacher is foster that relationship, because they are with you for 4 weeks or 3 weeks or sometimes 8 weeks, depending on how long the prac is. And that's a long time to be really, really close to someone and not like them. So it's really important that you keep that relationship professional and make sure that you are being that mentor teacher to them and guiding them along their path. Make sure you're encouraging, but also in that, I guess, in being encouraging, it's also making sure that you give them feedback at an appropriate time. So whether that is really good feedback or whether that's, oh, you may need to do this or you may need to do that, or maybe feedback that's not so good. Sometimes things just don't slap, you know? So we need to make sure that we are growing, but giving that feedback in a way that's really kind and respectful, because no one wants to be berated when given feedback, because generally the person's already probably beaten themselves up like 20 times before you've even given that feedback. And my last piece of advice for mentor teachers is try to share as much resources as you can. Obviously, I know from my end, I couldn't share a lot of resources with my prac students because they were like either school copyrighted resources or just I didn't use a lot of resources or things like that. So obviously take that to your discretion. Sometimes you physically can't share resources, but share as much as you can with your prac student. They're trying to put everything into their tool bag and get ideas and things like that, especially if it's their first prac. A lot of their knowledge is going to come from their schooling experience. So if you can input to your schooling experience as much as possible, everyone's gonna have a great time. So that's fantastic. All right, now some advice for our wonderful prac students. All right, prac students, I'm gonna run through this fairly quickly because I'm kind of envisioning this to be like a 2-part or a 3-part series. There is so much advice that we could give you as teachers coming in, so many things that we know that I don't know that I could really condense it all to one video, but I am hoping that this kind of gives you a bit of an overview, a bit of a look into just some really practical advice going into pracs that could help you. All right, to run down my list, number 1, be prepared. It would be great if you could even email your prac teacher. If you have their email address, I'm sure you would have the email address to the school, so you could email the principal to ask them. But be prepared. Come knowing the school culture, read up on the website, just like you would a job interview. So you kind of know some background about what the school is all about. Ask about dress code, ask about what time you need to be there, all of those kind of things. And also be prepared in your lessons. Make sure you're meeting your deadlines. Talk to your teacher if you can't meet those deadlines. But being prepared is one of the biggest things. Getting organized and making sure that you are being organized, because as a teacher, you kind of have to be a little bit organized. You kind of have to know what's going on and keeping up with stuff. So if you can master it in your pracs, it will do you in good stead. Another one that you could do is observe other teachers. If you can observe other teachers on your prac, that is fantastic. I know in my year 6 cohort, I have 2 other year 6 teachers, and I try to get my prac students to go and watch their lessons. Generally in the first week, kind of follow my class around as they swap and things like that to see how the other teachers teach. They also teach different subjects to me, so I like to go and send them to the other teachers as well so they can have a taste of those subjects. Maybe you're only in a 1 cohort school. Maybe that's going to ask the team teacher next door, or I don't know, just try to observe as many classrooms as you can. I've already touched on this, but pre-visits, if you can pre-visit your classroom, that would be amazing. You can kind of get all of the admin-y stuff done and out of the way and not have that affect your first day. Your first day, you can just get full into prac and just know exactly what you're doing, and it will take a lot of that anxiety out of that first day of prac. Really obvious ones. Ask a heap of questions. If you don't know something or don't understand something, ask questions and don't be afraid to ask those questions. Also, on the subject of asking, make sure you ask to help. Read the room. If you can see that there is a pile of marking on your mentor teacher's desk, ask to mark it. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but ask. Take the initiative. If you know that there's photocopying to do, if you know that there's homework that needs marking, I don't know, take the initiative and ask them to do that. Even if you can't do it because maybe it's something the teacher needs to mark, as long as you've taken the initiative, you've shown that you really care and you want to be involved and you want to be a teacher. So that's another really good one. Be open to feedback. Some people don't like it. I don't like giving like bad feedback, and sometimes that's really hard, and it's really hard when you're giving feedback to a person who doesn't take feedback really well. So make sure you're open to feedback, both good and bad feedback. Be on time, dress well, have your lesson plans in early. I think they're all ones that are pretty common sense. If you're not sure about any of those, ask your teacher. Other really good things that are really practical would be like have a prac planner, have a folder where you can keep all of your lesson plans, keep all of your printouts of things, keep everything together so that you're not scrounging around for paper, keep it all in the one place, and then you can jot notes and write notes as you go. Ask for the behavior management strategy of the classroom, especially if that teacher teaches multiple classrooms, because they might have different strategies for different classes. So check and see what their behavior management strategy is and then try to implement that straight away. Also, offer suggestions. Maybe you're seeing something that the teacher hasn't seen yet. Sometimes when we're in our classrooms all the time, we can get very like tunnel vision or like closed focus, but sometimes we miss things and we can't see things, where when a fresh set of eyes comes in, they can see things that we haven't been able to see. So if you see something that could be improved, tell us and give us the reason why, because it might actually work a whole lot better than the way we've been doing things. We just haven't been able to see it yet. Another one is to build rapport, not only with your students, but with your mentor teacher as well. You are with them for 4 weeks and following them around like you are their shadow. And sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming for that mentor teacher because they're by themselves all the time in their classroom all the time, and all of a sudden they have this shadow with them, and sometimes it can get a bit much. So build rapport, ask them about them. How long have they been teaching for? Have they worked in many schools? What do they like about teaching? Just those professional questions that will help build relationship. Don't just make it all about yourself. Talk to them, ask them about their teaching, and get their experience, because the best way to learn is through stories and through hearing other people's experience. So make sure you build rapport not only with your students, but with your mentor teacher as well. Our last one for our lovely prac students is to be flexible. Schools are crazy. Things change all the time, and even lessons can change on the fly all of the time, because maybe the lesson that was taught the previous day needs to be taught again, or a concept needs to be taught again, or there's a sports carnival, or I don't know, there's so much on, especially depending on the term that you arrive in prac. So make sure that you are flexible, because guarantee you the timetable that your teacher has put for you will probably change. So make sure that you are flexible, hold things loosely, and just remember to have fun, because prac is fun, school is fun, and you're going to have a great time. Remember, you are training to be a teacher. You're not going to know everything. You are definitely not expected to know everything, but you are expected to give it a go and have a great time, and to make mistakes, and to make sure that you are having fun and doing all of that. So that is quite simply my advice for mentor teachers and for prac teachers. If you have any advice, please leave it in the comments below, and maybe we can make a part 2 of different advice for mentor teachers and different advice for prac teachers as well. I hope you have enjoyed this little sit down chat. I hope it was just like we were in a nice coffee shop or in my lounge room having a cup of tea together. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe, because it really supports my channel, and I promise I will be posting more videos. It's the end of term 2. I'm getting back into the swing of things. My creative brain is ticking again, which is wonderful. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you on my next one. Bye.